She stood there in her wedding gown, mascara running down her face, her hands trembling so violently she could barely hold her phone. The rain hammered against the church windows like 1,000 angry fists, and somewhere in the building, 200 guests waited for a ceremony that would never happen. She would later tell her therapist that in that moment, standing outside that bedroom door, she heard a sound that would haunt her for years. Not a scream, not a cry, just the soft, sickening thud of her mother's jewelry hitting the hardwood floor. If she had opened that door just 1 second later, maybe she could have lived in blissful ignorance. Maybe she would have walked down that aisle. Maybe her entire life would have been different. They say betrayal hurts most when it comes from the people you love. But nobody warns you that the deepest wound, the kind that never fully heals, would come from the woman who gave you life. This story is not what you think. Every word you're about to hear is true. Every detail matters. Because sometimes, the monsters we fear don't hide under our beds. They sit across from us at the dinner table. How does a day that's supposed to be the happiest of your life become the moment everything falls apart? What secret had been festering in that house, growing like mold behind the walls, invisible but toxic? Why did a grown man kneel before his fiancée's mother on their wedding day? And why, when the truth finally came out, did an entire community choose sides in a way that would destroy more than just one family? These are the questions that kept investigators, therapists, and even church leaders awake at night when this story broke in a small town outside Atlanta 3 years ago. The bride's name has been changed, the groom's identity protected, but the truth, the horrible, gut-wrenching truth, remains exactly as it happened. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Naomi grew up in a house that smelled like vanilla candles and gospel music. She was 32 when this story takes place, a pediatric nurse who worked double shifts at Grady Memorial Hospital, the kind of woman who remembered every patient's name and brought homemade cookies to the children's ward on Fridays. She had soft brown eyes that crinkled when she smiled, and a laugh that made strangers feel like old friends. But Naomi carried something heavy that most people never saw. She'd been raised by a single mother, Regina, after her father walked out when she was 6. She remembered that day with painful clarity. The way her father's truck disappeared down their street, the red taillights fading like dying embers. From that moment on, it had been just the two of them against the world. Regina was 53, a woman who commanded respect when she walked into a room. She worked as an administrative assistant at their church, New Hope Baptist, and everyone knew her. She organized the church potlucks, led the women's prayer circle, and had a voice that could silence a room with a single word. Naomi worshipped her mother. She truly did. She called her every morning on her drive to work, stopped by every Sunday after church for dinner, and never made a major decision without asking Regina's opinion first. When people asked Naomi about her best friend, she didn't hesitate. "Mom," she'd say with a proud smile. "My mom is my best friend." Then Marcus came into her life. She met him at a church revival 2 years before the wedding. He was 35, tall and broad-shouldered, with a deep voice that resonated when he read scripture as a deacon. He had kind eyes and strong hands, and when he asked Naomi out for coffee after service, she felt something she hadn't felt in years: hope. Their courtship was everything a good Christian relationship should be. They prayed together. They attended couples Bible study. Marcus worked as a financial advisor, drove a sensible sedan, and treated Naomi with a gentle respect that made her feel safe. When Marcus proposed at a family dinner 6 months before the wedding, with Regina sitting right there at the table, Naomi cried tears of joy. Regina hugged her daughter tight and whispered in her ear, "You deserve this, baby. You deserve to be happy." The wedding planning consumed the next several months. Naomi and Regina spent countless hours together choosing flowers, tasting cakes, addressing invitations. Marcus seemed to get along well with Regina, joking easily, finishing each other's sentences sometimes. Naomi thought it was beautiful. She felt blessed. But if you had been watching closely, if you had been paying attention to the small details that Naomi missed, you might have noticed something strange. The way Regina's hand would linger on Marcus's arm when she laughed at his jokes. The way Marcus would text Regina separately about wedding details. The way they'd exchange glances across the room, quick and fleeting, like a secret language only they understood. 48 hours before the wedding, The energy in Naomi's childhood home shifted. She couldn't quite name what felt different, but something did. The air felt charged, like right before a thunderstorm breaks. She arrived Friday afternoon to find Marcus's car already in the driveway. When Naomi walked through the front door, the conversation in the kitchen stopped mid-sentence. Regina was leaning against the counter, her hand pressed to her chest. Marcus stood near the refrigerator, his face slightly flushed. "Everything okay?" she asked. "Fine, baby," Regina said quickly, too quickly, just going over the seating chart. That evening, during the rehearsal dinner, things got stranger. Naomi noticed Regina touching Marcus's shoulder as she laughed at something he said. Not a brief touch. Her hand rested there for 5, maybe 6 seconds. When Naomi needed Marcus to help her carry some gifts to her car, she couldn't find him for nearly 20 minutes. Finally, Marcus appeared from the direction of the church offices, slightly out of breath, saying he'd been taking a phone call. On a Friday night, Naomi's maid of honor whispered, "Girl, you sure about this one?" Naomi laughed it off. She was sure. Of course she was sure. The wedding morning arrived gray and heavy with humidity. Storms were forecast for the afternoon, but the ceremony was scheduled for 11. Naomi's bridesmaids arrived at her mother's house at 7 to start hair and makeup. Regina fluttered around, playing the perfect mother of the bride. At 10:15, Naomi slipped into her wedding dress. It was a simple but elegant mermaid gown with delicate lace sleeves. Her bridesmaids zipped her up, adjusted her veil, and stepped back to admire their work. "You're beautiful," Regina whispered, tears filling her eyes. "My baby girl." At 10:40, with 15 minutes before they needed to leave for the church, Naomi realized she'd left her grandmother's pearl bracelet in her mother's bedroom. The house was chaos. She slipped away from the commotion, her dress rustling as she walked down the hallway toward her mother's bedroom. The door was closed but not latched. She reached for the handle, and that's when she heard it. A sound, low and intimate. A man's voice. Then her mother's laugh. Breathy, different from her normal laugh. Naomi's hand froze on the doorknob. Every instinct in her body screamed at her to turn around, to walk away. But her hand, moving almost of its own accord, pushed the door open. And there, in the soft morning light, she saw them. Marcus on his knees. Regina standing in front of him, her hand on his face. Their faces close. Too close. Intimate in a way that made Naomi's stomach drop. The world stopped. Her bouquet slipped from her fingers and hit the floor. Regina gasped. Marcus jerked back. Both of them turned to face Naomi with expressions of pure horror. "Naomi," Marcus began. "Baby, this isn't." "Mama?" Naomi's voice came out small, broken. "Mama, what are you doing?" Naomi stood in that doorway, her wedding dress suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds, and watched her entire life collapse. "Baby, you don't understand," Regina tried. "This isn't what it looks like." "You were on your knees," Naomi whispered. "I saw you." "Marcus, tell me what I saw." "Naomi, I can explain," Marcus said, running his hands through his hair. "I didn't mean for." "Don't touch me." Naomi's voice rose to a scream that brought everyone running. "Don't you dare touch me." The bedroom exploded into chaos. Bridesmaids filled the doorway, their faces shifting from confusion to shock. Naomi's maid of honor, Jessica, physically stepped between Naomi and Regina. "What the hell is going on?" Jessica demanded. "We need to talk," Marcus tried. "Privately. This is complicated." "Complicated?" Naomi's voice cracked. "I'm supposed to marry you in 20 minutes. I'm wearing my wedding dress. And you're in my mother's bedroom on your knees." "It's not what you think," Regina sobbed. "Naomi, please, you have to listen." Naomi felt her legs giving out. Jessica caught her, helped her to the hallway, and eased her down to sit on the floor. She couldn't breathe. The corset suddenly felt like it was crushing her ribs. "Am I having a panic attack?" "Breathe, honey," Jessica said firmly. "Just breathe." Downstairs, someone was making phone calls. "The wedding's off. Something happened. Just tell everyone at the church to go home." Regina appeared, her face red and swollen. "Naomi, please. Let me explain. You owe me that much." "I don't owe you anything," Naomi said. "You're my mother. You raised me. You taught me right from wrong. You sat in church every Sunday. And you did this?" "Before you and I started dating," Marcus said quietly, "Regina and we had a connection." "What kind of connection?" Naomi demanded. "We were friends," Regina said quickly. "Just friends. We talked. He understood me. And then?" Things got complicated, Marcus said. You started dating him, Regina whispered. And I stepped back. I tried to be happy for you. But today? Naomi's voice rose. Today, on my wedding day? It was a goodbye, Marcus said, his voice cracking. One last moment before everything changed. Before I committed to you completely. I know how wrong it is. But I swear, Naomi, I love you. This was just one last time. The words hung in the air like poison. One last time. Which meant there had been other times. Many other times. Naomi lurched to her feet and ran to the bathroom. She made it just in time before she vomited. Over the next hour, while 200 confused guests were being turned away from the church, Naomi sat on her childhood bed and listened to the truth. Marcus and Regina had met before Naomi ever came into the picture. They'd connected immediately at a church workshop. Regina was lonely, Marcus admitted, and I was going through a rough time. We started talking on the phone, then meeting for coffee. It was innocent at first. When did it stop being innocent? A few months before I met you. And when you met me, I thought dating you would help me move on, Marcus said miserably. You were everything I should want. Good, kind, godly. But your feelings for my mother didn't go away. Marcus didn't answer. His silence was answer enough. For months I tried to stop, Regina said. When you two started dating, I told Marcus we couldn't talk anymore. But then the wedding planning started, and we were thrown together constantly. So you've been carrying on an affair behind my back for months? Naomi asked. While I was planning my wedding. We never crossed certain lines, Regina insisted. Today was the first time. Naomi laughed, a horrible sound. So I should be grateful? I should thank you for waiting until my wedding day? What Naomi didn't know yet was that this betrayal ran even deeper. Regina's sister, Aunt Marie, cornered Regina in the kitchen later that evening. How long, Regina? How long has this really been going on? Marie's voice carried up the stairs. Since before Naomi even met him, Regina finally admitted. Are you telling me you introduced your own daughter to a man you were involved with? I thought if he met Naomi, he'd see what a better fit she was, Regina said. She's young and beautiful. I thought he'd fall in love with her, and I could let him go. But he didn't let you go. No, and you didn't let him either. We tried. We both tried. But every time we were together, the feelings were stronger than us. So you were going to let your daughter marry him? Marie shouted. You were going to stand in that church and watch your daughter pledge her life to a man you've been sleeping with? Upstairs, Naomi heard every word. She sat on her bed, her hands folded in her lap, her face completely blank. One of her bridesmaids tried to comfort her, but Naomi pulled away. I'm okay, she said. But she wasn't okay. She was in shock. Jessica came back with more information. Apparently Marcus and your mom have been involved for almost 3 years. Since before you started dating. Your mom actually introduced you to him on purpose. She thought if he met you, he'd move on from her. On purpose? Naomi felt something crack inside her chest. She introduced us on purpose? Naomi started laughing, the sound unhinged. She thought she was doing the right thing. She thought setting me up with her own lover was doing the right thing. Naomi walked downstairs. In the kitchen, Regina, Marie, and Marcus fell silent as she entered. Naomi looked at all of them. I have one question, she said. And I want the truth. Did you love each other? Marcus and Regina looked at each other. The look that passed between them was intimate, full of shared history. Yes, Regina finally said. I love him. And he loves me too. Naomi nodded slowly. Okay, then you can have him. What? Regina's face went white. I said you can have him. Clearly you two have something I can't compete with. So take him. Be together. I'm done. Naomi, no, Marcus stood. That's not what we want. Isn't it though? You said the feelings were stronger than you. Today was supposed to be one last goodbye, but we both know that's not true. There would have been other goodbyes. Other moments. Other betrayals. Marcus couldn't respond. You're not in love with me, Naomi said. You love the idea of me, but you're in love with her. He didn't deny it. And you? Naomi turned to Regina. You're supposed to protect me, but you've spent 2 years lying to my face, helping me plan a wedding to a man you're sleeping with. What kind of mother does that? Regina was sobbing. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. You hurt me in a way I'll never recover from. You destroyed every good memory I have. You've made me question everything. I was lonely, Regina choked out. Your father left me. I've been alone for 26 years. I raised you by myself. When I finally found someone who made me feel alive again, I held on to that. So you took him instead. You took the man I was supposed to marry because you couldn't stand to see me happy. The room erupted in shouting. Aunt Marie lit into Regina. Other family members joined in. Marcus tried to defend himself. Through it all, Naomi stood silent in her ruined wedding dress, watching her family tear itself apart. Around 8 that evening, Naomi finally went upstairs, changed into sweatpants, and packed a bag. She called Jessica. "I need to stay with you for a while." As Naomi walked out, Regina tried to stop her. "Please don't go. We can work through this." "There's nothing to fix," Naomi said quietly. "You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." The weeks after were a blur of returned gifts and avoided phone calls. Naomi took a leave from work. Regina called dozens of times. Naomi blocked her number. Marcus showed up twice. Naomi refused to see him. The church community fractured over the scandal. Some blamed Regina. Others blamed Marcus. A smaller group whispered that Naomi must have done something to push them together. Naomi stopped going to church entirely. 6 weeks later, Naomi's therapist, Dr. Okafor, asked her, "What do you need to feel safe again?" "I need to leave," Naomi said. "I need to start over." So she did. Naomi transferred to a hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina. She found a small apartment with good light. She adopted a senior cat named Mango. She started running every morning, pushing her body until her lungs burned. The physical pain was easier to deal with. She made new friends who knew nothing about her past. Slowly, painfully, she rebuilt herself. It wasn't linear. There were nights when she cried until her throat was raw. But her therapist taught her about betrayal trauma. You're not just mourning the relationship. You're mourning the loss of your understanding of your past. Every memory is now colored by this betrayal. Naomi learned to sit with the pain instead of running from it. She learned that healing wasn't about forgetting or forgiving. It was about integrating what happened without letting it define her completely. 8 months later, Naomi received a letter from Aunt Marie. Regina and Marcus tried to make it work, but it fell apart within weeks. Turns out what they had was built on secrecy, and once it was out in the open, it lost its power. They're not together anymore. Your mama is a mess. She knows what she did. She's in therapy now. The letter ended with an invitation. "When you're ready, we'd love to see you. Not your mama, but me, your cousins. You're still family." Naomi put the letter in a drawer. She didn't respond, but she didn't throw it away either. A year after the non-wedding, Naomi met Dr. Patricia Coleman, a child psychologist. They became friends. Patricia shared that her father had an affair with her best friend when she was 25. Different details, same betrayal. For the first time, Naomi felt truly seen. Through Patricia, Naomi joined a book club, made more friends, found community. She started painting classes and discovered a talent for watercolors. She joined a hiking group. She volunteered at a women's shelter. She wasn't the same person she'd been in that wedding dress. That Naomi was gone. This new Naomi had boundaries. She asked questions. She trusted her instincts. When something felt off, she investigated instead of dismissing it. 18 months after leaving, Regina called from an unknown number. Naomi almost didn't answer. "Hello? Baby, it's me." Regina's voice came through. "Please don't hang up. I know I don't deserve even a minute, but please listen." Naomi should have hung up, but she didn't. "You have 5 minutes." "I'm not calling to ask for forgiveness," Regina said, her voice shaking. "I just needed you to know that I understand what I took from you. I destroyed your ability to trust, your sense of safety, your belief in family. I did that because I was selfish and lonely and broken. I chose my own needs over your well-being. I'm so sorry doesn't even begin to cover it." "Why now?" "Because I'm in therapy," Regina said. "Real therapy, 3 times a week. And I realized what I want most is for you to know that what happened was not your fault. None of it. You weren't inadequate or lacking. The problem was in me and Marcus. We were broken people who made terrible choices that hurt someone innocent." Naomi felt tears running down her face. "I don't know if I'll ever be able to talk to you again. I don't know if the mother I knew ever really existed." "I understand," Regina said. "I'm not asking for anything. You deserve every good thing. You deserve love that's honest. You deserve a life that's entirely yours. And I hope you find all of that." Naomi ended the call without saying goodbye. She sat on her couch for a long time and let herself feel everything. The grief, the anger, but also relief. Relief that she'd gotten out. Relief that she'd discovered the truth before marrying Marcus. 2 years after the non-wedding, Naomi went back to Atlanta for Aunt Marie's 70th birthday. Not to see Regina, but to celebrate with family. Her cousins rushed to embrace her. They didn't ask about Regina or Marcus. They just hugged her and told her how good she looked. "You're glowing," her cousin said. "There's a lightness to you now." "I feel lighter," Naomi admitted. "Like I'm not carrying weight that wasn't mine." Later, Aunt Marie told her, "Your mama wanted to come tonight." I told her no. This is your space. But she's doing better. She sold the house, changed churches. She's trying to build a new life too. "That's good," Naomi said. "I hope she finds peace." "Do you think you'll ever forgive her?" "I don't know," Naomi said. "Maybe someday. But forgiveness isn't something I owe her. It's not a gift she deserves. If it comes, it'll be for me, not for her. To release the last bit of poison. But I'm not there yet, and I might never be. And I'm okay with that." On the drive back to Charlotte, Naomi thought about how you don't move on from something like this. You move forward. You integrate the experience. You let it teach you without letting it destroy you. You build a new life on the ruins of the old one. 3 years after the wedding that never happened, Naomi met David, a physical therapist at her hospital. They met reaching for the same bagel in the cafeteria. He made her laugh. Really laugh. He was kind and steady and had sad eyes that suggested his own share of pain. On their third date, David told her about his divorce. His wife had left him for his brother. "I know what betrayal feels like," he said. "I know what it's like to question every memory. So if you've got walls up, I get it." Naomi told him her story that night. When she finished, David didn't offer platitudes. He just said, "That's heavy. I'm sorry. Thank you for trusting me with it." They took things slowly. They didn't sleep together for 6 months. They didn't say "I love you" for almost a year. They went to couples therapy before moving in together. "Is this what healthy love looks like?" Naomi asked Dr. Okafor. "It feels so different." "Because it is different," Dr. Okafor said. "What you had with Marcus was infatuation. What you're building with David is based on reality. You're seeing each other clearly, flaws and trauma and all, and choosing each other anyway. That's real love." For years after the non-wedding, Naomi and David got married in a small ceremony at a botanical garden. Aunt Marie and her cousins came. Regina was not invited. The ceremony was simple and honest. When they kissed, Naomi felt pure, uncomplicated joy. At the reception, Naomi said something that made people cry. "I'm not grateful for what happened to me, but I'm grateful for who I became because of it. I'm grateful for the people who stood by me and the courage I found to walk away from people who didn't deserve me." She looked at David. "I spent so long thinking I wasn't enough. But the truth is, I was always enough. They were the ones who were insufficient." 5 years after the non-wedding, Naomi gave birth to a daughter. They named her Grace. When Grace was 3 weeks old, Naomi received a package from Regina. Inside was a hand-knitted baby blanket with Grace's name stitched in white. There was a note. "I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted your daughter to have something made with love by her grandmother, even if she never knows who I am. I pray for you every day." Naomi sat with that blanket for a long time. Finally, she wrote Regina a letter. It was honest and painful. She detailed exactly how the betrayal had affected her, the nightmares, the trust issues. But she also wrote about her healing, about David and Grace and the life she'd built. "I'm keeping the blanket," she wrote. "Not because I forgive you. I don't know if I ever will. But because it's beautiful and Grace deserves beautiful things. I want you to know that I'm not your victim anymore. I'm not the broken girl in the wedding dress. I'm a wife and mother and a woman who knows her worth. You tried to destroy me, but I didn't let you. I rebuilt myself into someone stronger than I ever was before. So thank you, in a twisted way, for showing me that I could survive the unsurvivable." She mailed the letter. 2 weeks later, she received a text. "I read your letter. Thank you for the grace of your honesty. I love you. I always will." Naomi didn't respond, but she didn't delete it either. 6 years after the non-wedding, Naomi ran into Marcus in an airport. They literally collided around a corner. They both froze. "Naomi," he whispered. "Hi, Marcus," she said calmly. Her heart was racing, but her voice was steady. "How have you been?" "I'm okay. You?" "I'm great, actually. Really great. I heard you got married. Had a baby. Congratulations." "Thank you. I think about that day a lot," Marcus said suddenly. "I think about how badly I screwed up. You were right about everything. Regina and I tried to make it work and it fell apart because it was never real. I threw away someone real and good for that." Naomi looked at him and felt nothing. Not anger, not grief, not satisfaction. Just nothing. He was a stranger now. "I appreciate you saying that. I hope you found some peace." Her flight was being called. But Marcus reached out. Could you ever forgive me? Naomi considered the question. I already have, she said. Not in the way you hope. But I've released the hold you have on my emotional well-being. What you did no longer defines my life. I've built something beautiful from the ashes you left. So yes, I forgive you. But that forgiveness is for me, not for you. It's so I can move forward without dragging you along like a weight. Do you understand? Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. Take care of yourself, Marcus. And she meant it. As she walked toward her gate, she felt something shift. The last piece of ice around her heart melted away. She was free. Truly, completely free. So I want to ask you something. If you were Naomi, what would you have done? Would you have tried to forgive immediately? Would you have cut everyone off forever? And here's the harder question. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted completely? How did you survive it? Because that's what this story is really about. Not the betrayal itself, but what comes after. The choice to either let it destroy you or let it refine you. Naomi chose refinement. She chose to take the worst thing that ever happened and transform it into wisdom, strength, and peace. And if you're carrying your own betrayal, your own broken trust, I want you to know that Naomi's story could be your story too. Not the specifics, but the arc. From devastation to wholeness. You're stronger than you know. The worst day of your life is not the end of your story. So tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? Have you experienced betrayal that changed your life? How did you find your way back? I want to hear your stories. And if this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Remember that you deserve honesty. You deserve loyalty. You deserve love without hidden agendas. And if you're not getting that, you have permission to walk away. The best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's building a life so full of joy that the people who hurt you become irrelevant to your happiness. That's real freedom. See you in the next one.